What's up, Grovians? How's it going? I just want to say God is awesome because the song Lord, I Need You was exactly what I needed before coming up here. I was telling Phil and Briar that of all the times I've taught up here, I felt the most unprepared for today. I'm not really sure why, but I did. So just giving that all to God and being like, He's got this. These are His words, not mine. So let's do it. So this is our second week of the Greater Love series that we started last week. Phil he kind of taught on something, but didn't really teach on anything. But we talked about God's love last week. So this week we're going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And a lot of you are probably familiar with this chapter. It is often referred to as the love chapter. And specifically, the middle three verses you will oftentimes hear at a wedding. Most of the people in here that are married probably had these words said at their ceremony. But believe it or not, Paul didn't write this chapter or this part of the letter for weddings. He was writing it to the church in Corinth. And in fact, he was writing this section more to connect the spiritual gifts that the people in Corinth had to this idea of love, and more importantly, to God's love. So let's get into it with verses 1 through 3. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. So it's pretty evident that Paul's indicating if you don't have love, regardless of what you're presenting, you have nothing. He gives us three examples here of what we might be doing. So the first one he has is speaking in tongues of men and of angels. So this is both the spiritual gift of speaking in tongues as well as just speaking to other believers and other fellow people. So while speaking in tongues is great and it's an amazing spiritual gift that few have, there is really, if you're not doing it in love and you just feel like God's leading you to say something, it's just noise. So the analogy that Paul uses here is a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And me as a drummer, I love both of those sounds. So it's not really like I kind of disagree with Paul a little bit here, but what he's trying to say is it's just useless noise, right? If you took a song and you took all the music away and all you heard were the cymbal crashes, it would just be weird. It wouldn't make any sense, right? That's what he's saying that speaking to others, speaking through tongues without love is. Yeah. The second thing he talks about in verse 2 is the gifts of prophecy, having knowledge, and having a faith that can move mountains. So again, Paul's saying that all these things are great, but doing them without love, prophesying over people without love, having a swell of knowledge without being able to use it and effectively give it to people is useless. I mean, you could know the Bible front to back, have every verse memorized. Side note, have any of you seen the National Bible Bee videos? These kids literally repeating entire chapters from memory. It's crazy. But sorry, that's besides the point. It's like a National Spelling Bee, but for reciting Bible verses. Insane. But anyway, having that knowledge is great, but if you don't know how to present it and you can't present it in love to somebody, it's useless, right? You can't just hit them upside the head with a Bible and be like, oh, now you know stuff. No, you need to present it in a way that's loving and that they can learn and grow from it. Yeah, so that's that. And then the last thing that he talks about there in verse 3 is sacrifice. So he talks about both giving sacrifice of your physical possessions as well as surrendering your body. Once again, Paul's not discouraging sacrifice. He's not discouraging giving up your worldly possessions, giving to the poor. He talks about being a martyr. Like, being a martyr is one of the, I'm going to say, most heralded things that a Christian can do, to die for your faith. But if you're just dying to, like if you're not really dying with love, dying with the intention of like you're keeping God's word and you know it's the truth and you know that what you're doing is speaking love and putting love on others, then it's in vain. Similar to like if we're talking about Adopt a Block, and I know many of you have gone to like York City or Baltimore City and have handed out blankets or food or whatever. If you're doing that to feel good, that's not what you should be doing, right? You should be doing it out of love for the other person, to better their life, to give them an opportunity to feel the same love that Jesus shows us. So yeah, again, just to bring that whole idea together, like Paul does not say that any of the things he discussed in here are bad things. Speaking in tongues, prophesying, having a big being a living sacrifice, but we need to do it all out of love. All right, verses 4 through 7. Like I said, this is the kind of, wait, I never even said my point. Oh, all right. So it's that. Our acts and abilities can't outwork a lack of love. Sorry, I meant to say that at the beginning. I'll just pause for anybody that wants to write that down. Whoopsies. All right, verses 4 through 7. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So then my second point, I'll remember it this time, is that love isn't about a relationship, it's about how we treat others. So that's kind of why this is used in weddings, right? This is essentially a vow between a husband and wife, right? To be patient, to be kind, to not envy each other, to not boast or be proud, to not be rude, self-seeking, etc., etc. These descriptions that Paul is using here are the attributes of love that we need to be applying in our everyday life, right? These things don't just apply to love. And so I was actually going to go through all of them in a sense of like, hey, what's a way that we can like be patient through love? But I'm not going to do that. I just think you guys will be able to talk about that. It'll be a good discussion point at the tables. So you'll see that in the questions. But what Paul is getting at through this entire section is that these are the things that we should be focused on when we're loving other people. To be patient with them, even when it's the fourth time of us telling them the same thing. To be kind to them, to not be easily angered, and to keep no records of wrong. Like that's pretty tough. Like to love somebody by not keeping records of the things that they've potentially done to you. Like that's true love, but that's the love that Jesus showed us. So yeah, love is not about a relationship. It's how we interact with others by using these, there's 15 of them, these 15 attributes that Paul showed us here. All right, and then verses 8 through 13 for my third point. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. Now these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Now my third point is this: maturity in love should indicate a maturity in faith. As Paul's closing out this chapter on love, he's challenging us. First, he states that love never fails. And if you read the two verses after that, he shows that the very things that he talked about at the beginning, of prophecies ceasing, tongues being stilled, knowledge passing away, and perfection coming to an end, those things all end at some point. You may have the gift of tongues, you may have a world of knowledge. Eventually, you may lose that gift. Eventually, you're going to die, and that knowledge is going to go with you. But love is eternal. Paul then illustrates our maturity in our faith and in love. He uses the example of being a kid and talking and acting and thinking like a kid. But, sorry, I lost where I'm at. But then he talks about how when he became a man, he put his childish ways behind him. So is that the level of maturity that we're approaching in faith? Right? Are we still thinking about saying that we have time to get it right, we have time to figure it out? Right? Or are we taking every day to get better, to make strides, to build on our faith? That's what, in essence, becoming a man and putting our childish ways behind us is like. And are we doing the same thing in love? Are you still just treating love as a feeling of attraction towards another person? Or are you challenging yourself to approach love with every single person that you meet? Again, going back to those 15 attributes that he listed earlier. It all comes back to Jesus. Jesus' love was not for one person. It was not because he thought somebody was cute, right? He loved every single person. And he loves all of us. Because he loved us with those same attributes that Paul talked about earlier. He wanted what was best for us. We need to be treating people with this kind of love because that's the same thing that Jesus did. He was the perfect example of love. And that's kind of the reason that we're doing this whole study on greater love, right? We talked about God's love last week. It's to show you that love is so much more than just a simple feeling, that it should be the basis of everything that you do. And that growing and maturing in love shows proof that God's presence is in you and that you are maturing in your faith. So that's that. There are 3 questions for you to discuss. Like I said, the first one will be, I'll just read them quick. What area of your life do you feel like you are using your abilities but you aren't putting love first? The second one, which of the 15 attributes of love do you struggle with the most and which are you strongest in? That comes, again, out of verses 4 through 7, so you can look back at that. And then the last one, do you feel like you are maturing in love just like Paul illustrated, or do you still have a childish view of love? And if so, how can you improve?